Hi everyone! Welcome to a Get Ready With Me, another one. Today we're working on more world building. I am still on winter's break while I'm recording this, winter break, from school, which means I have had nothing to do in world building and it's freaking me out. So we're gonna do some world building today so that I regain my sanity. This video is intended to be a get ready with me, so if you want to hang out and listen, that's great. If you want to put this on in the background and work on Animal Crossing or The Sims or homework or whatever else sounds fun, that's great. Let me keep you company. That's what I'm here for right now. So I'm gonna drink some coffee and we're gonna build a world. Work on fleshing out a world. So I'm here today with the map that we started from last time, that we did one of these, complete with really simple names for things that are not real helpful. And the part that I most really need to flesh out is the part that's going to affect the storytelling. So for me, this world that we're working on is the same world that I am writing in for the current TV show project that I have been working on, that I'm proud of and excited about. So one of the things that I'm recognizing is someone asked me, so what's the governing system in your world? And I was like, oh, I don't know. That's a great question. So I'm going to make a list of the things that we're going to need to work on during this Get Ready With Me. And then we're gonna work on them. Doesn't that sound great? You're doing my homework with me. But it's fun homework because I get to write TV shows. Love it. To-do list. Develop a governing system. Sounds great. Next. There are also some interesting landmarks and places that I drew onto my map that my people in the TV show episode are going to be interacting with, and I would love for them to have names so that people are like, no, don't go there, because they've heard of this forest before. For example, I have already written that the coastline, the craggulous, scary, somewhat sandy, somewhat cliff-faced sided coast at the edge of the forest is called the Manic Coast. I don't know why it's manic, but it's there and it's terrifying and apparently makes you go crazy if you get too close to it. So we're going to develop why that's called the Manic Coast today, as well as naming some of the other places, such as we need to come up with the name of the bog that they're crossing in episode 2. The name of the forest that is considered treacherous, which they were also venturing into in episode 2. The name of the sort of swarm of fairies that are gross and evil. They're definitely inspired by an enemy that Matt Mercer came up with in Critical Role. There's an episode when they face, they're fairies, but they're like tar feather harpies, I think is what he calls them. And that's kind of an inspiration for this enemy that I'm using, but they're more fairy and less harpy. We need to come up with some more things that you might run into in the forest, because I've got a couple of really interesting obstacles and things that these characters are finding. I also would love to know if you were to hypothetically watch a show where magic items could be used to halt a plague. What kind of magic items would you think would be helpful for that? What kind of ritual would be done so that there would be, a stop to a deadly virus or plague? Is that a little too close to home? Anyway. I just wrote more trials along the way. And in the world of movies and TV shows, we call those complications. There might be multiple complications in one episode before the characters reach the finale. But either way, there are complications to the story. For example, The fire swamp in The Princess Bride is a complication, and within that, there are the 3 terrors of the fire swamp. You have the ROUSs, which they face closer to the end. The lightning sand, as they call it, and the flame spurts. So, that's real great and real complicated, and I love everything about it. I need more of that that's not already used, or that can be taken in an artistic direction. All right, let's get to work. Okay, let's start with the first thing that I wrote on my list, which is a governing system. Now, we don't have to develop this all in one day. I would just like to have an idea about it. So, in episode 1, there is an ambiguous character referred to as the Council. It has many members. It has a couple of people that speak up and have to say different parts. And I had just had it listed as the Council previously. And my professor said, when you're writing a script, you're going to write dialogue, and dialogue has to come out of the mouth of a character. So I can't just have this ambiguous council when I go to writing a script. Does that make sense? Cool. So I get to decide what kind of council. Is this a secret council? Is this a council that's like privy to the king? Is there a king? Is there a queen? What is my system? What is even going on? I don't even know. Anyway, that's what I get to decide today. So here's the thing. I would like to make a complicated society, not just a straightforward society. So, perhaps, on this continent that we've devised, there are multiple sort of kingdoms that break up the world. That makes sense in a continent. There are typically, in medieval times, could be different kingdoms. That's feasible. So maybe there is a monarch on the throne. Who is it? And here's the other thing. I'm going to say that a lot. And another thing! There needs to be a fault in this function, or maybe the whole thing is a fault. One of the things I analyzed from, or, gleamed from watching the first episode of The 100 for analytical purposes was everything about the hero's journey in that show is forced on the character and not really chosen, and I think that's a really interesting twist in the way that the story is told. So, now you've gotten kind of a peek behind the curtain of all of the things swirling in my head, or a few of the things swirling in my head when it comes to how complicated it becomes to write a governing system. For now, I need to define whose council this council is, and what their titles are, I guess. So when I've written councils before, typically there's a member of the church, a magical member, a head of a school of some sort, a head of the community, someone with powerful connections that got into it somehow, someone who was voted in, and someone with royal blood. So what is that, 7 members? 7's a pretty good number. That way, if there's, 3 and 3 that vote on something, one person still breaks up the vote. And here's the thing. In a world like this, we all kind of know that there are a lot of corrupt figures in churches. So when I say a member from the church, it doesn't have to be the modern American church or even the medieval American church. It doesn't have to be the corruptness that we know. It could really be a kind and gentle and maybe passive figure. Maybe that's this character's flaw, that they're just a passive good voice that doesn't stand up for things. That's interesting. Okay, a member of the church. What else did I say? A member of the community. I mean, maybe it's 2 members of the community, because one of the ones that I listed was someone who's voted in. So maybe 2 members of the community who were chosen to be a part of this council. Here's the problem, though. My council's almost evil. And when I say evil, my friend and DM expressed to me that in the world of D&D, Evil just means selfish, that they don't really care who gets hurt in the pursuit of their causes. So, with that in mind, my council's not really evil. They just have a huge responsibility to protect the city and are okay with using people to get what they want. That makes me feel better. They're not really an evil council. They're just, motivated. I said a leader of a school, like the headmaster. I think I imagine this because Albus Dumbledore was on several councils. So this is a person who's wise. I don't necessarily want them to be daft. Dumbledore's often described as daft. That's not the only time. In the world of Critical Role, there's 3 pillars of the community, if you can call it that. 3 leaders of the school who are in charge of a lot of decision making and help the ruler or monarch or king in a lot of ways. And yeah, so inspired by all of that, I just need a very powerful member who is a leader of a school facility of some sort who helps make decisions. Cool. That's 4. What else did I say? I should have been writing as I was going. Oh well. Well, that was off the cuff, so let's go off the cuff again. A member of the church, 2 members of the community, a headmaster or leader, someone probably in law enforcement of some sort would be on this council, just because if there really are like people that are a council leading a city, everyone who has an important role in the city should have an important voice in the city. In a wonderful, perfect world, that would be the case. I don't think that was one of the original ones that I said. Who else is important? What else happens in a city that's like, I'm going to do 2 more. Okay, I'm going to skip that and come back. We have done some good work on the City of Shelenium Council. All right, next thing on my to-do list for the day. Why is it called the Manic Coast? Workshopping here. Okay, if it's called the Manic Coast, it causes mania. It's known for causing mania. That means people have had to escape or have found the corpses of people there with notes on them so that you know why they're manic. It's haunted. It's possessed. It has I feel like this is too cliche, an evil mist of magic that floats over the coast so that when you're there and you breathe it in, you're like, oh, fuck. That was real profound. Okay. I'm gonna need some input in that one. I don't know what else. Why is it called the Manic Coast? Okay, I need a name for my bog. My initial instinct was the Shademark Bog, but that's from Lord of the Rings, so I can't use that one. I like the murk though, because it gives it that perfect air of that you kind of need with a bog, you know? So what about what are other words that are kind of gross like that? Okay. Here we go. Murk. Groggy. Silt. Silt is kind of a gross word. Sticky. Tar. Back to thinking about the tar feather harpies. They went through a bog too. This is perfect. Okay. It has well, what makes those bogs creepy or treacherous? In Lord of the Rings, it's because there's like bodies in the water, and that's freaking sketchy. So it's got this air less of glugh and more of, that's the technical term, less of that and more like, it's just dangerous for a different reason. It's that like haunting feeling. Okay, I can work with a haunting feeling. I feel like that's helpful and functional. I almost really like the the slurp sound. Like that feels like it goes to the bog too. Because that feels like mysterious and treacherous and also kind of gross. So how do I embody the slurp sound into words rather than calling it the slurp bog? Because that sounds really gross. The swashbuckle. Nope, that's already a thing. The that's the technical term also. Okay, we've got a general air of what happens in the bog. I'm going to skip it and come back. I'm never going to decide anything if I skip everything and come back. The next thing, the forest name. I feel like this should be easier. The forest of... I feel like there should be a name that sounds like an evil sorcerer's name. My first thought was like the Forest of Dean. That's from Harry Potter, and that's really neutral. And my other thought was the one in the Lord of the Rings, because that's mystical and wonderful. And then I thought of the Broccolin Forest, that's in The Witcher. So I like these, like the something forest, or the forest of something. Let's just throw some letters together. Z-A-R... Zarganeth. Zargonic. That sounds like bubonic. I like Zargo. We're getting closer. Zarthul. Is that already a bad guy? The Zarthul Forest. Zartholic. Is that weird? Zartholian. Zarthulian. Zarthelian. Okay, I like that one the best so far. So I'm going to start it with an X because that's interesting and fantasy-like. Who are the Zarthulian people? Or what is the species that is named Zarthul? What is it? Why is it the Zarthulian forest? What's the history here? All these questions and more can be found in my TV show someday when I write it. Okay, my next thing on my list that we're going to do today during this Get Ready With Me. Thank you if you're still watching for tuning along. Next thing is to come up with some artifacts. I already have some ideas. There are some that are already in play. I'd love to know what they do or what else might be interesting. So, I have that there is a tapestry. So there's like a ruby, a tapestry, ever-living water, from a silver ewer, a crown that's really corrupted. I already know what that one does. Ooh, maybe that's tied to the Manic Coast. Interesting. And I have, yeah, so the weird tapestry thing is a thing that my characters will find. I was thinking, like, they break into the house of a giant, and I don't want to go with your Jack and the Beanstalk garden variety giant. I want them to be more interesting than that. Like, anybody can do the clothing that doesn't fit, the beer belly, the really tall and stupid. I want them to be like really cool and civilized giants, or like, I don't know, they're interesting. They're not super easy and, you know, run-of-the-mill giants. Anyway, so they go into this giant's house and they have to sneak around and try to get to the napkin. Ends up being the thing that the giant is wearing on itself for its meal. Their meal? I'm sorry. For their meal, this giant is eating food. And the characters have to climb up the table and like get it off the giant somehow. It's a whole freaking trial. But that napkin / tapestry is an artifact. long story short, I want these to be really hard to get to. Anyway, those are all of the things that are sort of spinning around in my head right now. If you have suggestions or ideas, hit me up. I would love to hear them because I'm going insane. I'm thinking about how all of this is going to work together. So if you know how it's going to work together, I'd love to hear it. If you like what you see, if you want more Get Ready With Me's or more insight into what I'm working on, let me know. I'd love to give you more of this stuff because it's really easy to film and really fun. So, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already so that you get notified when I notify you. Otherwise, I'll see you next week, and I hope that your January is going bright and beautiful and wonderful already. See you next week.